Sleepover Stalker. So a few years back, me and a few friends had walked across our town to go to the town center. We were around 13 years old at the time. Our town was not huge, but it was one of the bigger towns in the county. There was a lot of crime in the area, usually to do with drugs. Anyways, back to the story. So we were walking along one of the main roads because it was the shortest way to get to the town center. We were all staying at our friend John's house later that night, and we wanted to get some snacks and maybe some new games if they were cheap. Well, we made it to the town center, and all was well and good. But on the way back is when it got a bit creepy. About halfway between John's house and the town center, while walking down the main road, we noticed a man in a dark jacket walking behind us. It was around 5 p.m. and it was February, so it was getting a bit darker. We thought nothing of it initially, but as we walked further and further, we noticed he was still following us. We decided to pick up our pace to try and get back as fast as possible while trying to remain calm. Despite taking a different route home to try and lose this man, he stuck with us, walking about 10 meters behind us. We were at the bottom of John Street when the man started to slow down. We got back, and while we were shaken up about the man following us, we didn't think it was a big deal, and we didn't bother telling John's mom or brother. Later on, around 9 p.m., John's mom went out to spend time with some of her friends, and his brother was at a neighbor's house. We were sitting in the living room. John's house was laid out in a way that the sofa in the living room was visible from the kitchen, and the kitchen had a window at the front side of the house. We were watching a film, and I went to get a drink. I walked to the fridge next to the window and got some Coke. When I closed the door, I glanced at the window to look outside. I thought I noticed someone there, but it was dark outside, and the light was on in the kitchen, so it was hard to see outside properly. I shrugged it off and walked back to the living room. About 20 minutes passed, and I glanced back over to the window. Now the kitchen light was off, as was the living room light, making it easier to see outside. I could quite clearly see a man there, and he looked exactly like the man who was following us on the way home, wearing the same dark jacket, staring at me and my friends intently. I looked back at the TV, not trying to give away anything. I told my friends that I think there was someone at the window, but to not all look. John turned and looked. He was as shocked as I was. We were all 13 years old and home alone. Needless to say, we pretty much shat ourselves. John got up and went over to the home phone, which was just next to the front door, and called his brother. He said he would come right over straight away. We made sure the front door and back door was locked and sat in the living room until his brother came back. Thankfully, the man was gone by the time John's brother got back. We checked the house and the garden just in case he was hiding somewhere, but he was gone. We all thought this would be the end and that we wouldn't see the man again, but a few weeks later, me and my friends were walking to a sports event, taking the same route we had taken previously, and saw the man again. This time he didn't follow us, but as we walked past, he stared at us intently. None of us knew who this man was or why he followed us. None of us have seen the man since, and hopefully never will. He pretended to be me and also a lot of girls. Hey Reddit, my mother tongue isn't English, but I'll do my best to make you all understand something that I'm passing through. It hasn't ended yet, but well, I feel like more people should know about this. On February of 2016, I had someone pretending to be me and talking to my family. Now, let me explain. He saved my photos and made a fake profile with my name, then sent friend requests to my family. He spoke to them and even asked my father for a picture of us together. Later, he asked me, "Why did you ask for a picture of us together?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" And no one thought it was weird. My mom actually noticed that the account was false when I was talking to her on front of her, and the account was also talking to her on Messenger as well. The guy who did this disappeared, but it was stressful and made me start using fake names, since he found my family using my surname plus my city. So December, finally 2016 was ending, and I thought I was finally getting some peace. I was told that someone was using my photos for catfishing, and the person simply apologized and said that he was administrating a Facebook page which posted pictures of girls and blah blah blah. I was like, yeah, okay, just don't post my pics, and I accepted the person's friend request since he deleted my photo. Her name was Danny. Danny was kind of weird. Whenever we spoke, she would ask personal things or feet pictures, which I never sent, since it was annoying, but I never doubted her or anything. To me, she was an ordinary girl with some weird foot fetish. I kept that thought until my friend told me to stay away from her, because she was actually a 21-year-old man who stalked girls and pretended to be them. She told me her experience. He stole my friend's pictures, then made a fake profile with them, and started to report her profile. After that, the fake profile started to add lots of people and became famous. She stopped using her real name and photos due to that. She told me to watch out. The thing is, she told me that the guy did this not only to her, but to lots of other girls. Back in 2016, he had around 5 or 10 fake profiles, which no one doubted that were all fake. After I cut contact with Danny, she created another account just to ask me why I blocked her, and well, the more profiles I blocked, the more profiles appeared. There was a point where he made a profile with my friend's name and picture and pretended to be her. But I knew that it was Danny all along. I was scared, but since nothing happened, I simply relaxed and hoped for the best. My account was reported for pretending to be someone else and therefore was deactivated. But who the hell was I pretending to be? Well, that's when I discovered that Danny stole my pictures and started using them. She would also say stuff like I only add white people and disgusting Nazi stuff. I wanted to punch her, or better, his face. Her photos would get around 500 to 700 likes, and whenever I tried to create another profile, someone would say that I was pretending to be Danny and report me. She also would ask people to report my profile because I was the one pretending to be her. It was easy to believe her since my profile was recent, and she had lots of photos and videos of me. Danny would make profiles of my friends and send messages like, I got blocked, can we talk here? Just so I would send friend requests, then she would steal more pictures. Anyways, it all ended when I made a live stream on one of my accounts and started to talk about what happened. People believed me and Danny's profile was deactivated, or so I thought. After some days of peace, a girl named Victoria was using my photo. On her profile, it would show that she was a girl with red hair and green eyes. Actually, she changed her hair a lot. She was tagged in a family picture in which her tag was on a little blonde girl. My experience with Danny fucked me up, so I started doubting Victoria's existence and asked her to take my pic off. She was like, I can't and not now. My patience was wearing off, but my friends actually believed that she was a little girl. Anyways, one of my friends asked her for a real picture since she was using my photo. She sent, but I knew something was weird because my other friend did the same thing, and she sent the photo of a completely different girl. Spoiler, it was Danny again, the 21-year-old guy who had nothing to do but stalk girls. The same thing happened. She reported my profile and started to use my pictures. The thing is, her photos would get around 500 to 700 likes. No one really believed that she was a catfish except my friends. No matter what I did, she would report all my profiles. I lost a lot of profiles. She would even steal pictures from my Instagram account. You know, I'm in the middle of the story, but let me tell you, a 21-year-old guy pretends to be a girl, so he started to pretend to be me and report all my profiles? That's some crazy Nazi stuff, you know? There was another profile named Victoria. She was an Asian girl who would post lots of sexy and insinuating photos. But the thing that she would always say was that she was underage. When asked, once she said she was less than 10 years old, and her photos were basically nudes. I would always get sick looking at her profile because I knew it was Danny all along. At the same time, Danny's profile was reactivated. You know, when someone dies and their profile gets some kind of memorial, that's what she did. That way no one could report her profile. At that point, I didn't know what to do. My parents wouldn't let me report to the police, and my profiles were getting reported. That's when I noticed that Danny's profile was using my old Tumblr's URL. I used it to create a blog talking about what Danny and Victoria did to me, and it kinda worked. Lots of people discovered the truth about those profiles. Both profiles disappeared, so yay, happy ending. Or not. Even so, that guy still had lots of profiles. To be honest, there isn't much left to tell besides the fact that he still stalks all my friends and me. We aren't sure what we should do about this. Some people say that the police may help, but it was already contacted and nothing happened. The guy's disappeared for now, but I know he will return. It's been a year since it all happened, and I don't think it's going to stop, since he stalks my friends since 3 years ago. But for now, let's not meet, you creep. Non-existent peeping Tom neighbor? Background information, 15-year-old boy, living in a sort of close community neighborhood. Okay, so being the pubescent teenager I am, I do normal teenager things when I'm alone. My computer and setup are next to my window, that faces towards my neighbor's house and parallel to their window. Normally my blinds are closed because I hate the light, and normally theirs are too. They never seem to be home, so I've never really worried. Although, about a year ago, back in February, I noticed shadows behind their blinds. Cool, I didn't really care, but occasionally, I noticed movements when they then see someone looking at me. It was only their eyes, but still creeped me out. I figured it was just their child wondering what I was doing. Good for me, I was only browsing Reddit. I waved and shut my blinds. I thought nothing of it. One day, while carelessly choking the chicken, I noticed some movement to my left. I look over to see a little person staring at me. Shit. I close my blinds and go complete noodle. I felt rather disturbed. From then on, every time I looked over, the same two eyes were staring through that window. Have no idea why they were doing this, but I wanted them to stop. I walked over to my neighbor's house and knocked on their door. I was greeted by my neighbors. Whoa, big surprise. I asked if their kid could stop looking at me through his window, but they said they had no kid. Conclusion. Either ghosts, very creepy pedo neighbors, or some sort of fucked up furniture. I don't even care. I buy curtains. Since buying curtains, this little peep stopped. Thank God. Nice stroll home from the bar. I've been reading a lot of stories on Let's Not Meet, and I decided to post my own. It happened a few years back in February. I was at a local bar with a few friends having a few drinks on a Friday night. I felt tired and it was about 2 a.m., so I decided to walk home alone. My house is about 15 blocks from the bar. It's not a good neighborhood, but I'm a big guy, 6'3", and I was kinda tipsy, so I didn't think much of it. As I was walking, I could see a girl run into the street and fall over. Then a man run up behind her and grab her, and she was fighting back. So obviously I knew something was bad. So I went up and found out what was going on. As I got closer, I could see them better. The girl was an Aboriginal woman in her late 20s. She was pretty from what I could see, but also messed up. I wasn't sure if she was high or drunk or drugged or what, but she couldn't really talk or walk on her own without falling over. She also didn't have a coat on. Now, this is in Canada in the winter. You need a coat or you're in trouble. The man I suspect was close to his 60s, white, short, fat, weird-looking guy. He was grabbing this girl. The man dragged the woman onto the sidewalk off the street as she sloppily tried to fight him. I walked up to him, asked him to tell me what was going on. He said something like, "I found this girl on the street and she's gonna freeze without a coat or get run over by a car. So I'm trying to bring her back to my place to keep her warm. Can you help me bring her back because she's having trouble walking?" As he was talking to me, the girl got up. She stumbled over to me and grabbed me super tightly, so tightly it hurt. Then she said something to me in gibberish. She couldn't talk, but I could tell she wanted to get away from this guy. My creep meter was at 110%. A creepy guy wants me to bring a drunk or drugged girl to his place when she doesn't want anything to do with him? I thought I better do something about this. So I told him no, I don't think I'm going to help him bring her back to his place. I told him I'm gonna call the cops instead, and they can deal with it. He got upset with me and was telling me I shouldn't call them. He said his place is so close, why bother the cops? And that they would take forever when she was going to freeze or run into the street. He said a few more excuses like that and kept on reaping them. So obviously I ignored him and called the police. I said where we were and we needed someone to pick up this girl. Before I finished the call, the creepy guy was bugging the girl more, so she took off as best she could. Kind of falling, getting back up and falling, I followed her. I kept telling the creepy guy to stop bugging her and leaving her alone, but he kept following too. I stayed on the phone with the police to keep giving them updates of her location as she runs from us for a few blocks. All the while, the creepy guy is still trying to talk me into helping him get her to his place. The creepy guy finally realizes I'm not going to help, so he grabs her again and starts to pull on her, and she tries to fight back. Before I can do anything, the cops pull up and sees the two of them struggling in the streets. I inform them they can now deal with this, and I walk away. As I walk, I could hear the creepy guy telling the cops that they need to bring her back to his place. And they respond like he's a rapist, which he very well might be. Walking home turns into a bad time. I go to college as a criminal justice major and do not drive. As such, I usually walk the 5 miles it takes to get to school. I figured it's good exercise and a way to clear my mind. This is probably sometime in the early portion of the year, around in February-ish, in the Northeast. I'm thinking about calling for a ride, but it's a nice enough night out. Really odd since it's around that time of year, but we had a pretty hot winter for winter standards, so I decided to risk being a little chilly and get started on the walks I love to take. I'm walking along dancing to music and singing to myself, and I come across a man standing outside a pizza place. He's trying to talk to me, but I have no idea what he's saying because my music is probably on or close to 10. I slow down and stop in front of the store and take the headphones off so I can hear him a little bit more. It turns out he wants change. I take a quick look up and down and realize that something is off about him. I think he might be messed up on some kind of drugs, but I decide that it's best I give him a quarter or something and be on my way. He tells me that he doesn't want to take away from what I'm trying to do, and I laugh pretty much thinking a quarter isn't going to break the bank. I put in my earphones and head along my way. I get about 5 to 10 minutes down the road, and I've lowered my music because I'm coming up to roads I need to cross. I hear footsteps behind me and then beside me. It turned out the guy followed me down the road. The conversation was a pretty bad one. I can't believe I stayed and didn't run sooner, but here goes. Where are you coming from? School. That's good, man. It's good to see young people doing something with their lives instead of just walking around. Where are you headed? Home. Where's that? Down that way. Who do you live with? Parents. Oh man, that sucks, man. If you get a place of your own, you can have a bunch of girls up in your house doing all kinds of freaky shit. Nervous laugh. Hey, let me ask you something. You got a big dick? I don't know, man. 'Cause black women love a big dick. You ever had a black woman suck you off? No. Hey, man, can you give me some money? I already gave you what I had. Somewhere around this conversation, he tells me that he needs a hug. I gave him one, and he's wondering if I've ever had a black guy suck me off. Note, he is a black guy, and was giving pretty strong hints. Don't ask me why I gave a hug or why I stuck around. After he started talking about black dudes sucking me off and throwing those hints around, I ran. My memory on this whole thing is pretty messed up, but it's when I realize this guy isn't leaving me alone and either wants to rob me of my music device or trying to get me back to his place via hugs and such that I nope the fuck out of there down the street. This was roughly 7:30 at night. This man either wanted to rob me, fuck me, kill me, or kill me, fuck me, rob me, or none of the above, but I didn't stay much longer to find out. I didn't know if I could run that fast. And don't know to this day why I gave the guy a hug or stayed so long. I have an inherent trust in humanity, I guess. but I've been trying to teach myself a lesson since I'm lucky my naivete didn't get me killed. I eventually did end up calling the police on this guy, but I waited a few days as I didn't really have any identifying information I could give them. But since then, I do notice the cruiser going up and down that road from time to time. I have to use that road still, or walk by it if I'm that paranoid on my way home. Every time I go near that road, the anxiety level is ridiculously high. I just keep telling myself that maybe the guy got caught, or noticed the increased police presence, and it's at that being there wasn't a good idea any longer. I mean, surely he can't be watching my routine or anything, right? Thanks for reading. Creepy guy outside of public restroom. It happened February 2012. I remember the date because the body of a teenage girl was found on campus a week after this incident. Her death was ruled a suicide, but in the summer of 2012, it was discovered she had been raped 2 months prior to her death. I don't know where or if it even happened on campus. She wasn't a student at the university, but this final detail has always stuck with me. But anyways, I digress. So, it was early February, only a few weeks into the semester, and I already had a few exams to prepare for. Each day, I'd set up my things at a student lounge table. Laptop, books, notes, printouts. It was a mess. Setting up, as well as cleaning up, took 10 minutes alone. So whenever I needed to use the restroom or go anywhere, I'd simply leave everything there and go. I still do it, actually. Stupid, I know. But anyways, as I was studying at a student lounge, it was when suddenly I got the urge to pee. So, I leave everything behind, laptop, books, cell phone, wallet, everything, and run out of the student lounge and into a restroom down the hall. It should be noted that although it was daytime, most students were in class at this time, meaning that the area was completely empty. Also, this was one of those semi-hidden restrooms where you got a wall covering up the restroom door. So if someone were to stand in the hall, there was no way you could see them unless they decided to go into the restroom themselves. So as I was saying, I go into the restroom, do my thing, wash my hands, and come out as quickly as I can because I don't want any of my things to be stolen. But as I'm leaving, I'm stopped by this man right outside the restroom door. I am a little surprised by him being there, but at this point, I am not really concerned. He seemed really nervous and on edge though, but I thought maybe he had just accidentally come to the wrong restroom and felt embarrassed about it, so I don't really say anything. I just try to walk away, but he, a tall man with a heavy build, blocks my path and makes it harder for me, a petite woman, to leave. He asked something about a psychology class. Can't remember his exact wording, but it was something like, "You're in Professor whatever psych class, right?" And again, his voice sounded really nervous, and he was also really twitchy. I'd never seen anyone act like that, but I thought he was just extremely shy. So I tell him that I'm not taking any psychology classes and try to get away again. This time, when he moves to block my path, I suddenly feel very scared. It's like it finally hits me that this guy is acting really fishy. He keeps on talking about that psychology class, asking me questions about it as I tell him that I'm not in it and therefore know nothing about it. All the while I'm trying to get away, but he just keeps on blocking my path each time. Several times I tell him that I need to leave, but he just ignores me and keeps talking about some exam or meeting he was supposed to have for the class. I honestly can't remember much of what he was saying, just that I was terrified and on the verge of tears. I was trying to be strong and assertive, but my voice kept shaking, and it was pretty obvious that I was uncomfortable with him being there. Finally, I noticed that each time he blocked my path, he'd also move closer to me, so in an attempt to get away from him, I take a step back until I'm almost against the door. He takes a step forward and very suspiciously reaches for his back pocket. I thought for sure this guy's gonna pull a knife or a gun and kill me, but I never did get to find out what he was carrying. Maybe he was looking for a cell, who knows? Because this time someone overheard me tell him that I need to leave. They asked if everything was fine, and that creepy guy finally stepped away and let me go. I don't know. Maybe I just overreacted. Either way, creepy guy outside of the restroom. Let's not meet again. Customer with a sixth sense of humor. The first job I ever had was a cashier at a discount grocery chain exclusive to my state and area of said states. I worked there from the summer after high school through my first year of college. The pay was crap, and so was the job, but I appreciate that they were at least willing to give me some work experience. This particular store also tended to get more low-income customers, so I have some weird stories, but this one is burned into my memory. It was late February and pretty much dead, usually around 6 in the evening. The manager on duty would pull some of the cashiers off the front to straighten the shelves so we could go home as early as possible after close. Since they had minimal staffing most nights, it usually meant only one cashier, almost always me, would be the only person up front, while everyone else went and did their thing. Around 8 that evening, the manager pulled the other 3 cashiers off the registers and sent them to straighten, leaving me to ring out the occasional customer that floated through. A gentleman about 65 years old came up to my lane with his basket of groceries, and I proceeded to ring him out. I could tell he wasn't from the US, and I would judge by his thick accent to be Hungarian, Romanian, or some other Eastern European. He kind of reminded me of a heavier, shorter Jerry Orbach for the Law and Order fans. This particular chain of stores had a whole section called closeouts, which was really all the leftover junk that other stores like Target couldn't sell, so when they were out of season, this chain got them at a discount. Because of this, they were required to cross out the original barcode with marker and put price stickers on the items. These almost always fell off and wasn't uncommon for customers to bring stuff up to the register with no price tags. I thought that this was the case here. The guy puts this black drawstring bag up on the counter. Thinking it was a random closeout item that had a carrying bag, I reached into it and pulled out the object. Not knowing what it was, I randomly rang it out at $1.99 closeout price and put it back into the bag. The old guy that I was waiting on kept a straight face and eyeballed me the whole time I rang out his order. I gave him his receipt and he thanked me politely as he left. I didn't realize until I was driving home one night, around the time I left that job, and was thinking about the thing in the bag. Was the guy's most likely used dildo that I touched with my bare hands. That was just one of many things looking back that made me hate that place, and I quit right after school got out that summer. To the creepy old European perv who likes to embarrass young female cashiers with sex toys disguised as store merchandise, I hope I never meet you again. I also hope someone catches you doing what you did to me and reports you. Suppose I've only been a minor when he pulled this on me. Valentine's Day surprise. About a year ago, I received a Facebook message the day before Valentine's Day reading, "Are we still on for tomorrow?" It was from some guy I went to middle school with, and I haven't seen in 3 years. A little confused, I asked back, "What are you talking about?" He proceeded to tell me about the plans we had made to hook up if we were both single. The problem with this is that it never happened. Initially, I was more outraged than worried. I continued to ask questions as to why this boy I haven't seen in years would thought I want to hook up with him. He told me that he had been chatting with me on Twitter and had been flirting with each other. This is when I started to get freaked out. Someone was pretending to be me online. I asked for the Twitter handle and the user had been recently deleted. I asked him if anything else creepy was going on, and then he sent me nudes the fake me sent him with my face photoshopped on them. I took this to the police and they basically brushed me off, asking if I had a rival girl at school or flirted with someone's boyfriend, basically just asking if I was a petty high school girl. What's worrying me now is Valentine's Day is coming up fast, and I haven't spoken to that person since. I was stalked for about a month. Like many of these posts, it started out with a not sure if this belongs here, but about 2 years ago, I was managing a pizza place in a shitty little town. Because I was a new manager, I got stuck on night shift for the first year there. It started with the phone calls. They were always the same. A man would call about an hour before close and politely ask for Kelly. I would always tell him that Kelly wasn't working tonight and apologize before hanging up. Sometimes he would make a second phone call half an hour later and ask the same thing. I told my GM, who said he would mention it to Kelly and try to figure out who would be calling. One night, after again telling him that Kelly wasn't working, he started screaming at me, "Don't fucking lie to me! Kelly, I know that's you! We're not playing this game anymore!" Slightly panicked, I explained that I wasn't Kelly, and that she's been working the other stores for months, and that he had the wrong person. He just hung up. The phone call stopped after that. About a week later, I made a temporary move to day shift to be trained, while Kelly returned to take over the night shift. Confused, I asked if she was nervous working night shift with the phone calls we've been getting. She just started laughing. She explained the phone calls had been from her boyfriend. He had just been confused about what store she was working in and called the wrong one. It seemed like a logical explanation, so I brushed it off and enjoyed my glorious week of day shift. I just finished closing on my first night back. While walking to my car, I noticed an SUV parked in the connecting grocery store parking lot. It had its lights on and was facing the store. I was a little unnerved, but it's not exactly uncommon for cars to be here at nighttime. Lots of drug deals, people living in their cars, etc. I mentioned it to my GM, who told me to call the police if I saw it again. That night, sure enough, it was there again. Looking back, I should have called, but I tend to be too trusting. It was there again the next night, and I promised myself if I saw it there again, I'd call, but it never was. Flash forward a week later. The driver had done a heavy mop and decided to open the back door to help the floor dry, despite it being February. And he was also a huge dick, so he left for the night, leaving it open without even telling me. A bit later, I heard it slam shut. To fight off the paranoia, I told myself that the wind must have blew it shut, and continued the night without investigating. The next day, I come in and my boss is pissed. He starts going at me for smoking in the bathroom. He takes me into the office and throws 2 burnt-out camel butts on the desk. I explained that they must have rolled under something and got pulled out by the broom last night because the only person in the store who smokes camels is Kelly. He takes my excuse, but not happily, and tells me to make sure that the floors are getting swept properly. I had the next day off. It was Valentine's Day, and I got a call around 11 from the closing manager. They had the back door open to dry the floors, and Kelly's boyfriend walked in with his hands behind his back and asked where Kelly was. Driver panics, tells him he needs to show his hands before he tells him anything. He turns around and takes off running. They run outside and see an SUV pulling away. The manager calls the cops and they search the area, but no good. The next day, the GM calls Kelly. According to her, he had been there to bring her flowers, but just got confused about which store again. The driver calls bullshit. He would have seen flowers, whatever he was carrying, he had hidden under his other arm. GM says he has to take her word for it and tells her to inform her boyfriend personal visits are not allowed. About a week or so later, she quits. The GM tells me she left her boyfriend. I guess she would tell him that she was working in that store when she was going to cheat on him with several people, the GM included, because it was the farthest away from her house. The only reason that she got away with it for so long is because he was mistaking me for her in the beginning. The same height, weight, age, hair color. I still to this day believe he came in the back door that night and just hid in the bathroom. just sitting there, smoking, trying to get up the courage to do God knows what. I also wonder what would have happened if the driver would have been gone when he showed up on Valentine's Day. If I had been working and had my back turned. I forgot my knife. This is a story I haven't shared till recently, probably 3 months ago. I've only told 2 people, and I think getting it out there might bring me some peace. Just a quick few notes. My dad is a drug addict who relapsed 1.5 years ago, and his life went downhill fast. He lost his house last year around March to the bank, so it's been sitting abandoned since, with some of my dad's and brother's stuff still inside of it. Also, I live in a small town with maybe 300 people inside city limits. Many are druggies or sex offenders, and since there's no police, it's easy to get away with shit. Now back to the story. My grandma gave my dad an electric heater last February to keep warm, since his gas had been cut, and he never bothered to give it back. It's been really cool this year, and even though at the time it was the end of February, it still felt like the dead of winter. My grandma asked if I would drive over there and pick it up, because her bedroom had no heater in it, and she wanted to get it before the next snowstorm. I reluctantly agreed, mostly because I was tired of sharing my space heater. I drive over there, not bringing my money or even my knife with me, thinking I'd be home fast, since my dad's was only 3 blocks away. Let me explain first the layout of the house. It's a small 2-bedroom house. You walk inside, and there's a small living room to the right. About 5 feet away is a hallway with a bedroom at both ends, and the bathroom is the middle of the hall. I walk in since the bank nor my dad decide to lock up the house. The windows are open except my dad's bedroom, which is the bedroom closest to the living room, about 10 feet around a corner. I walk inside, and I get a worse feeling than what I had before. I tell myself it's just my anxiety, right? And that nothing was wrong. Then hear something that makes me freeze where I stood. A loud, low groan coming from my dad's room. For some reason now, I look to the kitchen, which is almost a straight shot from the living room, and noticed there was cans of food on the counter. They're not dusty, and I know my dad didn't leave them there because my dad didn't have any food in the house. Then I hear another groan, and I stop moving completely. I try to tell myself it is my anxiety, but the feeling of danger refuses to leave. Then I hear a loud bang come from the room, as if someone is getting off the bed, that my dad also didn't bother to get out of the house. I reach for my knife, but I know where it is. It's laying on my bedside table 3 blocks away. I quickly weigh my options. I'm a 6 foot, 200-pound, 17-year-old who knows her way around a knife. But not knowing what I'm up against, I know I needed to book it out of there. I get the quick realization that the room is only 10 feet away around a corner, a few steps, and whoever is in there will be out soon, and I will have been spotted. I didn't even bother to shut the door. I book for my pickup that's 20 feet away on the side of the yard. I don't even bother to run around to the driver's side. I jump into the passenger side and quickly crawl to the driver's side. Thank God I had left the pickup running, so all I had to do was put it in drive and floorboard it out of there. I get to the end of the block and tell myself that I probably just imagined the whole thing, that it was my anxiety. Before I turn, I put the pickup in park and turn all the way around. And I always remember what I saw. Not one person, but 3 guys, standing on the porch looking my direction. One of them holding what I presumed was a bat, in which my little brother left behind. I'm not sure what happened between me being in frozen fear and me driving away. I think I blacked out for a few seconds out of fear, but next thing I know, I'm speeding to the main road. I slow down a bit to turn, and I speed home. I lock my pickup and run inside. Like I was still being chased. I get inside, and my grandma asks where her heater is. It took me 10 minutes to tell a somewhat cohesive story. My grandma insists I was just hearing things, and to this day doesn't believe me. She tried to get me to go with her, but I refused. No one bothered to try and get it. and I sure don't plan on it. I hate to think what would have happened if I didn't leave. Would I have been killed or kidnapped or even raped? I don't know where those guys came from, but I never seen them before in town. They were probably a bunch of druggies running from the law. I live close, and I still pray that they don't ever decide to come and do something horrible. I sleep with my grandfather's gun by my side, leaning on my bedstand now, and I keep my knife inside the pillow next to me. Call me paranoid, and I'll admit it. I want to get my open carry license when I move into my own place. I'm going to carry my knife with me everywhere from now on. So, 3 guys in my dad's house. Let's not meet, and if we do, I'll have my knife this time. He's just a nice guy. This is a throwaway account, just in case. So about 2 years ago, in 2014, I was really bored one evening, so I decided to create a profile on an app called Meet24. It was really crappy and for international people to get to know each other. Turned out men only sent their dick pics on said app, so I deleted it shortly after, but not before meeting Leonardo. See, Leonardo is from Italy and I happen to be German. I actually have Italian ancestors, and I've been to Italy a few times in my childhood. This was one of the topics we started to talk about. He seemed friendly enough, and although I wasn't looking for a long-distance relationship or even a relationship at all, I gave him my number and we texted via WhatsApp. Shortly after exchanging numbers, I remember getting annoyed by him. He started sending me cheesy pictures with crappy love quotes, sappy love songs, and even texted, "We can be friends, and we don't have to start a relationship." At this point, starting a relationship hadn't crossed my mind once. Even the becoming friends part seemed highly unlikely to me all of a sudden. I didn't get a creepy vibe or anything like that. He was still being friendly, but just overly annoying and persistent. I mean, there were countries separating us. I was safe. But he said he would come to Germany to see me, because he really wanted to meet me. Keep in mind, we had only been texting for a few hours. Suddenly, he started to talk about relationships, that we could be soulmates, and more pictures of weird love quotes were sent. I was like, dude, chill. And then he was like, yes, you don't have to be in a relationship right now. Love takes time. I tried to tell him that's not going to happen, and when he started to call me, I didn't pick up. I told him straight away that I was not interested in a relationship nor friendship with him, and I blocked him, quickly forgetting about him. About 8 months later, I got a text from an unknown number. He didn't say who he was, but I saw his WhatsApp picture and immediately recognized him, since he was still using the old picture from 6 months ago. He asked me how I'd been and more rather tame stuff, before I asked if we knew each other. Of course I knew it was him. Then he said that we indeed texted before, but I blocked him. He was still nice to me, not realizing that blocking him was my way to say, I don't want to stay in contact with you. I blocked him again. About 6 months ago, I got a friend request on Facebook. It was him. He still used that old picture of himself. I wasn't scared or anything like that, just confused. I didn't tell him my surname, but he did know in which city I lived and my name. Keep in mind, I told him over a year ago, very briefly. Weird, I thought, and without adding him, I texted him over the Facebook Messenger. Again, he was friendly and nice enough, not realizing that blocking him twice was still the same message. I don't want to stay in contact with you. I still wasn't creeped out, just annoyed. Quickly, he started talking about relationships, that I was the most beautiful girl, and asked if I didn't want to meet him only because he was black. He asked me that even if my family wouldn't accept him, he still wanted to try and meet me. I told him that it wasn't his skin color, and instead told him I had a boyfriend. I lied. Then he suddenly said that being just friends was fine with him, and that he wanted to become friends with my boyfriend too. Now, that is just ridiculous. I blocked him shortly after a third time. I really tried to reason with him, since he was still being quite polite and nice, but he persisted. Again, I forgot about him until 2 days ago. First, my Instagram account is not connected with my Facebook account. There is actually no way to find anyone without knowing their nickname, or already following a friend of the person you're looking at least I thought. Leonardo Followed me 2 days ago on Instagram. My account is not on private, so he could have gone through my pictures without me knowing, even screenshotting and saving them without my consent. He followed me, and at first I didn't know it was him. I had my assumption, but he was using different pictures now, and he looked a little different. I wasn't sure, and I didn't want to accuse a stranger, so I waited for the text. And I got it this morning on my way to work. He was still being nice. "Hi, how are you?" With a red heart, I replied. I wanted to be sure. "Hey, fine, and you?" "I'm fine, thanks." "How cold at your place?" "Very cold and rainy since it's autumn." "Ooh, that's serious. Which kind of sport you do?" At this point, I was sure it was him. I was a little perplexed that he didn't tell me right away who he was. He used to do that. I decided to confront him, while a shocking realization slowly set in. "Sorry, do we know each other?" He proceeded to tell me that I was in Germany, and he was in Italy, and that we don't know each other in person. We've never met. I told him that I know who he was. I don't want to narrate what passed between us. We did chat on WhatsApp, Facebook, but we first met on one app called Meet24, remember? I know, I remember. "Are you low-key stalking me? How'd you find me?" No response. Only seen. He then liked a picture of me from February 2016. I blocked him again. I asked myself, do I really have a stalker? Is this real? Did he try to hack into my Facebook account a few weeks ago? Weird. But he's just a nice guy in a different country. Nothing to worry about, right? The chat conversation is real and happened a few hours ago. No other person tried to follow me since. And I've set my profile on private. There was really someone who tried to hack into my Facebook account. I even got a message from Facebook while I was using it on my phone. The person didn't succeed, but again, I was really perplexed. It never crossed my mind that it could have been him until this morning. Circling his prey. Way back in 2005, my girlfriend, now wife, decided to move in together. Our meager salaries allowed us to rent a little one-bedroom in a gentrifying intercity Victorian neighborhood. It certainly wasn't the safest community, and the apartment wasn't anything special, but we loved the location. Right outside our doorstep was a gorgeous historic park. We adopted a dog and would take her for long walks along the stone pathways and trails. The park boasted a large zoo, a public pool, athletic fields, a small lake, and a large gazebo that doubled as a bandstand in the summertime. On our first Valentine's Day, I found myself pretty strapped for cash. We decided to celebrate on the cheap by having a romantic picnic in the park's gazebo. I picked up some bread, cheese, fruit, and a bottle of cheap wine on my way home. We packed everything in our basket and walked into the park just as the sun was setting. We laid out our blanket, lit some tea candles, and began unpacking our dinner. I was just about to open the wine when I noticed a dark figure lurking beneath a lamppost about 50 yards away. Now, silhouetted by the light, he stood perfectly still facing us. I couldn't see his face, but I could make out an orange knit cap and a heavy coat. He stood there facing us for about a minute, turned, and walked away. It was a little unnerving, but not anything that was going to ruin our picnic, ruin our time. Valentine's Day makes folks sentimental. Maybe he was just looking fondly at a young couple in love? Then I saw the mystery man slinking from bush to bush and crouching. This was odd, because it's not like he was making much of an effort to hide himself. He was way taller than the bushes, and I'm sure he could see us staring right at him. So why was he doing it slowly? He crept from bush to bush and then darted behind a tree. Then it became clear. He was circling us and getting closer. We were rapidly losing our appetites. Who is this guy? Is he a rapist? Is he looking to mug us? Is some bum just trying to fuck with us? It didn't matter. The mood was ruined, and we decided to end the picnic. As we were packing our things, he stepped out from behind a tree and began walking straight into the gazebo, and then he stuck his head underneath the railing and began to climb in. In stepped a skinny, filthy old man with a spotty gray beard and intense glassy eyes that darted around in the candlelight. I grabbed the wine bottle by the neck, wielded it like a club, pointed it at him, and screamed, "We're not hanging out with you, dude!" I grabbed my basket and my girlfriend and booked it out of the gazebo. He didn't try to follow us. When I turned around, he was still standing in the candlelit gazebo, staring intently at us. We ran out of the park, up to our apartment, and called it a night. We ended up living in that neighborhood for a couple years after that incident. We never saw the guy again, but we also never went into the park again after dark. Fuck that.